welcome to the short recording, What is Waste? So what we're going to look at, kind of a recap on what is waste, look at the acronym Tim Woods, which is the 8 wastes, and then we're going to go through some examples of each of them wastes. So looking at the concept of lean, we have value adding, so that's the activity we want to maximize in any of our processes. So adding activity to the customer's perspective. We have what's in amber here, which is non-added value activities like audits, support, ordering materials, which all are unavoidable, but don't actually add value to the actual process. And then anything in red is defined as, if it doesn't fit into the green or the amber category, then it goes automatically into waste. And that waste is something that we need to minimize and reduce. So what we're trying to do with the lean perspective, the objective is to increase the share of value added activities by eliminating waste and reducing the non-added. So this non-added value, which you do, if it's excess checking and things like that, you can look at reducing that. And you ideally, the philosophy here is to eliminate waste out of the process. But that's the philosophy, and seeking perfection from lean. Reality is something different, but you're looking to minimize, reduce this or eliminate it altogether, and reduce this by then creating and maximizing value added activities. So the acronym Tim Woods basically takes waste and it divides it into 8 categories. So anything that doesn't add value or is classified as non-added value activity is classified as a waste. And that waste can fit into 8 categories. And these categories is transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, and skill under usage. Each one of them wastes we can see on a daily basis. So to give an example, we'll go through each one of them wastes. So transport, excess movement of information and materials from place to place. So examples would be on-site, needless movement of materials. Probably materials coming in on site, being stacked in one location, then being found out as in the wrong location for an activity 2 weeks later, having to be moved and then moved again to actually the location where it's actually going to be used in 6 weeks time. So that's a perfect example of a potential waste. So in the office, poor location of the printer, so constantly wasting or transporting, moving up and down to where the printers were. Example, I worked in an office and the printers was on the 3rd floor. I sat on the 6th floor, up and down the stairs to check paper and which was a waste. Inventory. So more information on materials on hand than the process needs right now. So an example there, you can see a picture of manholes. A lot of manholes deliver the site, but there might only be 2 manholes being installed in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but yet there's probably 30 manholes stacked or 25 manholes stacked in the overall stockpile. So having too much materials on site is an actual waste. So having too much inventory to hand, or even excessive tools, having too many tools to do the project, is classified as an inventory waste. An example in the office is unneeded files, extra supplies, having a pallet or 2 pallets of paper for the whole year taking up a room. That is classified as a waste from the inventory perspective. Motion would be, you're thinking, oh, it's very similar to transport. So motion is any motion that is not necessary to the successful completion of the activity. So if you're not walking to complete that exact activity, so excess handling of materials and maybe move materials 3 or 4 times around site, or put them into one room and then realise that room is going to be the floors are going to be done in that room next week, then taking it all out and put it into someplace else, and that has to be moved again because you've got too much of it. So that would be waste of motion. Excess walking to site, or walking around activities and not having maybe the information and walking up and down to find information, just would be classified as excess motion. in the office, so working for information that you regularly use. Over if you're regularly working with a colleague on a project, that colleague's on a different floor or at the far end of the office, and you're regularly up and down talking, that whole example would be an example of waste. Wait is fairly self-explanatory. This one, waiting for people, responses, data, equipment, paper, supplies. So waiting, example, on site, waiting for materials to be delivered, waiting for approvals, for requests for further information, responses back. In the office, queries to work or waiting on processes or waiting for feedback from the client is all elements. Anytime you're basically waiting for a response, that is a waste. So we're looking at it as another waste, so overproduction. So producing too much or producing it before it is required for the next process. So producing it too soon or producing too much of the material full stop is a waste. So example, if you're fixing steel cages and the team goes on and fixes 5 or 8 more steel cages and realises they've used material up that should be in someplace else and they only need 6 and they've made 8. So an example, that'd be overproduction. So finishing excess finished goods, more steel cages than fixed than is needed. In the office, expansion of the work scope. So basically developing the work scope and going outside the scope, doing more work than is required. Over processing is slightly different. So overproduction is actually producing it. Over processing is providing or creating more than the customer wants or is willing to pay. So if you're looking at specification, material finishes, giving a concrete slab a higher specification finish than actually what the specification details you is classified as waste. So you'll put more time and effort into actually finishing that concrete slab than what the actual spec is asking for and what the client is willing to pay for. So that's an example of a waste. Putting, in this case, picture here, probably putting in too many timber columns than actually what's required from the structural engineer. Excess approvals going through is also a praise. So looking at approvals. Example, CCing a lot of people into emails that don't need to be there. That's over processing it, and then inviting too many people to meetings, that people invited to meetings that don't actually have any impact or contribution to the meeting is another waste. Okay, so getting to the second last defect, waste. So defect, anything that doesn't meet specification in our money. So any work that contains errors or is lacking information, resulting in wasteful rework. So reworking not the specification, not right first time in the office, missing information or wrong information. A picture of there you can see on concrete that hasn't got into the reinforcement, and that's a defect. And the last waste, which is our skills under usage. So using people not utilising their talent or their exposed experiences, and having, suppose, people, like example, a plumber being used to hang doors, where that's not going to be very productive at that, or that's not his specialised trade. Having a student engineer plotting only drawings out and not doing that the whole time, and instead of them giving the student engineer experience or trying to get more involved and utilising their skills, maybe very good at AutoCAD or calculations or whatever they're good at. So if you're looking at the 8 wastes, so as I mentioned, the Tim Woods 8 wastes the waste can be calculated or categorized into one of the 8 categories we've just gone through there. So it's important we put them into the categories, so then we know how we can actually try to reduce and eliminate them going forward. Okay, thank you very much.